Hello guys, welcome back to 157, and today our topic is characterized narration. I don't know why I have a hard time saying characterized, but yeah, bear with me as we start this episode. In those days, Mr. Sherlock Holmes was still living in Baker Street, and the Bastables were still looking for treasure in Lewisham Road. In those days, if you were a boy, you had to wear a stiff Eton collar every day, and schools were usually nastier than now. Unorthodox, isn't it? But then again, C.S. Lewis's The Magician's Nephew always struck me as quite, well, unorthodox. The narrator obviously has opinions about certain aspects of this era. Heck, he doesn't even know he's not even telling you what era this is. But yet, somehow, we get the narrator's point, with more words without a doubt. But we are even more interested in such an introduction to such a setting. Well, first off, what makes it so interesting to someone like me? The narrator feels like an actual person. He can be indirect, misinformed. He obviously has opinions. This is what makes a character. And we as people, we just love character. Characters are even what carry the story in the first place. They're the protagonist, antagonist, side characters. So what if we added character to the person who carries on the story themselves? By that, I mean the narrator. What if we added some flair to it? What would it add to the story exactly? It would add character in places unforeseen, adding some uniqueness and edge. And for one thing we know, character can add all too much to a story. But to ask the deadly question, how do you create such a complex for a narrator? Well, let's start off the list. Item number 1. Make him or her an actual person. You can even base it off an actual person, yourself even. By actual person, I don't mean include them in the story. Make sure they have emotions, feelings, opinions. This is what the main frame of our character is going to be revolving around. You need to solidify this person's character. And item number 2, which is slightly based on item number 1, let them be subjective, even in details. This is also what sells a lot of character in a person. Thirdly, let them have a sense of humor. Yeah, you heard me. Because when you really think about it, that's what people do. Have humor. Which is something I like. Fourthly, let's just say, make them still perform the task of narration. Sure, let them be a character, but just don't fill it with opinions. Make sure you actually carry on the story. Make sure you don't characterize the narrator so much that the story will revolve around him. No, he's telling the story. He's telling what the story is. And that story is not about him, unless the first person story, which I forgot to clarify, we're talking about third person in this sense. Fifthly, defying the old third person narration trend, don't let them be omniscient. It's kind of not fun in that way. Let them know certain things, let them discover new things as they carry along the story. I know it doesn't make sense when I say it, but when it comes to actual characterization, it will come along eventually. And ask yourself questions about when you create the narrator, just like the following. How often should the narrator make remarks? What are the narrator's opinions? How much do we know about this narrator? How much actually does the narrator know? And yeah, in a more technical sense, in what tense is the narrator speaking in? Is it a story from the past? Is it ongoing right now? Or is it a prophecy of the future? And just to fortify my lesson before, I was I wasn't very confident in this lesson myself. And then I just took a look back in some of my favorite stories, games, even movies, and I realized that even they had some form of characterized narration. Think about it. Do you think the kid's adventure in one of my favorite video games, Bastion, would be as exciting and as intense if the narrator Rox wasn't telling the story with such wit? Would C.S. Lewis's The Magician's Nephew have the same fun, imaginative nature if its narrator wasn't as quirky as he was? Would the name of the book is Secret still retain that snarky, curiosity-provoking atmosphere if the narrator didn't choose to put such a satirical kind of narrator bringing along the story? And my answer to all of these questions would be no. The Bastion would just strike me just as another video game. I would even think that The Magician's Nephew would be kind of annoying. And The Name of the Book of Secret would just strike me as just another story trying just nothing new. Back to the question and how we should use this. When should we use this style? Well, to put it simply, in any story you believe can really call for it. A horror novel, I'm not entirely sure. A satirical horror novel, of course. Such a form of narration could add so much to a novel, or take too much from one. You need to learn when to use this kind of narration, and you just don't overdose it on any of your stories. But what can we learn from this? Well, broaden your perspective on writing. I know it may sound a little bit distant, but just hear me out. Realize that we can even add characters to such a thing as narration. There is so much left to explore in the tree of writing, and this style of narration is just a branch of such. Narration with such a kind of flair can add so much more to your story, humor, interest, personality, and just so many other things. Who knows what kind of literary elements are just out there waiting to be used, waiting for your story to be expressed in more beautiful, incredible ways.